All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. My name is Michelle Jenkins. I am the Customer Marketing Manager here at First Communication. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about SD-WAN. So first I want to introduce who's going to be doing the presenting today. First we have Marguerite Stevens, who is our Vice President of Product and Marketing here at First Communication. And she's been in the industry over 20 years, working at companies like Comcast, and has a lot of experience bringing new products to market. And then we also have Gregory Walton, who is with VeloCloud, which is now part of VMware. And Greg has a great story. He started with SD-WAN as a customer, and now is a trainer. He travels worldwide, training partners, customers, end users on the great benefits of SD-WAN. So we're very excited to have him join us today. So today we are going to talk about a few things. And so if you have any questions throughout the presentation, go ahead and send them through the chat box. And if we have time, we'll get to them at the end. So today we're going to talk about the challenges of the WAN. So why is like a SD-WAN, why is it necessary? The tenets of SD-WAN. Greg is going to show us a little bit of the Orchestrator, and then why your network would need SD-WAN. And then again, we'll go over some questions if we have any at the end. So at this point, we're going to go with our first poll question, and then we'll kick it over to Marguerite.
Thanks, Michelle. So let's go ahead and kick it off. If you could let us know, have you thought about adding SD-WAN to your network? It's been out there, lots of people are considering it, lots of people are trying proofs of concepts. So let's see what our audience is doing.
So while they're out there answering, I'd like to thank Michelle, Marguerite, and First Communications for giving me an opportunity to speak today. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to getting a chance to talk with your customers about the SD-WAN solution, and hopefully being able to give them a few of my perspectives and my journey through SD-WAN.
Great, thanks, Greg. Wow, we have an outstanding 100% that people have considered putting SD-WAN into their environment. What do you think about that, Greg?
It doesn't necessarily surprise me at all. One of the things that I have seen in the 4 years that I've been working with SD-WAN is SD-WAN is really solving problems. It's not just smoke and mirrors. It's not just a technology where you install it today and then there's going to be some bright spot in the future. Customers are taking advantage of SD-WAN. They're seeing real benefits to it day one, and it's solving problems that people can understand and identify with. So that does not surprise me at all.
Great.
So if we take a look at what's been happening in the market space, we look at the Magic Quadrant, and I assume everybody here is very familiar with Gartner, and Gartner's been out for a long time. And for the last couple of years, customers have been just hammering them with thousands of requests. Do you have an SD-WAN Magic Quadrant? And to Gartner's credit, they held off on building a Magic Quadrant for a really long time because they kind of felt like SD-WAN is kind of a combination of a few different technologies, and there's a lot of competing products in the space. And how are we going to educate our consumers, our customers, on what to buy if we don't sort of scrap everything we've been doing and start over again? And that's exactly what they did here. So if you notice, it's not an SD-WAN Magic Quadrant, it's WAN Edge infrastructure. And that's really interesting because what they did is they scrapped traditional routing. They no longer do that Magic Quadrant. They scrapped WAN optimization. They no longer do that. And now WAN Edge infrastructure is about network function virtualization, universal CPE, WAN optimization, traditional routing. They've wrapped all these things in together. And what I find it makes me happy is seeing VMware out there in that top right-hand corner. When you think about the competition in this space, Cisco, Silver Peak, Fortinet, Riverbed, those guys have been around for a long time in the hardware space. And VMware's acquisition of VeloCloud, that is their SD-WAN solution. And VMware's vision for what's happening in the space has really put us in that top right-hand corner. I I recommend everybody out there get a chance to get this copy of the report and read all the way through it. There's some incredibly great insights in there, but happy to be a part of the company that's in the top right-hand corner. So do I have the ability to move this slide forward?
You can. I moved it for you. Yep.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so let's take a step back and let's talk about why SD-WAN is such a huge deal right now. And it all comes down to application performance. And I say that because we don't have routers and switches and access points just for the sheer nature of having a network. We have a network so we can support the applications. And the benchmark by which all of these networks are judged are how well are my applications performing. When the CIO looks at the network manager, he says, hey, how have we been doing? It all comes down to the user's impression about how well the network's been performing. One of the things that has severely hamstrung us in this space is the lack of visibility and control of what's happening to our networks, to our applications, while it's in the wide area network. And the explosion of applications across the landscape has made this even worse. I recently gave a similar presentation to a group when I was in Barcelona, and I was telling them, if you want to think about application explosion, it took me 5 applications on my phone to get me from my home in Portland, Oregon, all the way to Barcelona. Between the airlines, between the hotels, between the Ubers, and everything else, there was 5 different applications it took me to get from point A to point B. And that's just an illustration of the application explosion. This is happening in businesses across the globe. So move the slide one forward. So what problem is SD-WAN trying to solve? Well, at the most basic principle here, this is an everyday network, right? We have our users out at our branch. We've got our data center and our applications in our data center. For most companies, you've launched an MPLS network in order to run your critical applications to make sure they get from point A to point B in a consistent fashion. And then to back up that MPLS, we've got that backup VPN connection. So problem number one that everybody's trying to solve in this space is when MPLS has an issue, and it can, right? When MPLS has high packet loss, or if it has high latency, we don't fail over that MPLS over the backup VPN line, because technically it's not down. We just continue to try to jam those applications across that MPLS. When MPLS fills up, when it gets congested, when it's got too much data trying to pump down there, we don't fail over the backup VPN, because technically it's still up. We're still trying to pump traffic down there. So the first problem that we're all trying to solve in this SD-WAN space is, hey, is there a way for me to take that internet connection, that backup VPN, and that primary MPLS and bond those together to create one big fat pipe? All of us in this SD-WAN space, that's the core of what we're trying to do. Where VeloCloud has differentiates itself from the rest of the players in this space is that while it is true that a lot of our applications exist in a legacy data center, there is a significant portion of them that are moving up into the cloud. More and more of our applications, more of our workloads are moving to the cloud. So while every SD-WAN player in the space is trying to solve that branch to data center, what are you going to do about those applications that are moving up into the cloud? Move the slide forward one. And so when we think about those applications that have moved to the cloud, you think about Salesforce, you think about Office 365, Box.com. One of the biggest problems that we have is you're going to move these critical applications away from your MPLS, which is tried and true, and you're going to move it onto the internet. And the internet, as we all know it, is a best effort medium. And the best way to sort of explain what a best effort medium is, you're sitting at your house, you're streaming a Netflix show, you're getting a beautiful high definition picture, and all of a sudden it goes from high definition to standard definition for no reason whatsoever. That's the internet doing what the internet does. And we've come to expect that in our everyday lives when we're trying to stream the game on our way home on the bus or the train. But when you're trying to run your business across this best effort medium, that illustration, that graphic you see there about what we typically expect from ISPs is just not going to cut it. And if you think about that graphic illustration there about high packet loss, about high latency, about inconsistent delivery, if you're a customer who has bought into your cloud first strategy and you've moved all your applications to the cloud, that isn't a tenable solution. So the question then becomes, what is SD-WAN and what are we trying to do to solve this problem? So go ahead and move it forward one. So what SD-WAN is a combination of what I like to call 8 different things, right? This is what I call the 8 tenets of SD-WAN. And so the first thing that SD-WAN should do, right, is it should be bring your own bandwidth. And what we mean by bring your own bandwidth is it should be able to ride over any medium. And when they say any medium, we really mean any medium. We mean DSL, we mean coax, we mean MPLS, satellite, 4G, 5G, LTE. All of these different mediums should be able to be brought to bear, and it should be able to ride over all the top of it. It should be cloud managed. There should be a central location from which you manage, deploy, and have your devices zero touch, pull their configuration so that you can do all of this management in one central context or one central instance. There should be dynamic load sharing. If you bring 2 different mediums, right, one that's maybe 50 megabit and one that's 100 megabit, the system should be able to detect that there's 150 megabits worth of throughput and be able to use all that available throughput. It should be able to detect brownouts. It should be able to detect a circuit that maybe technically is still up and running, but whose high packet loss or whose high latency is so bad that it's completely unusable. It should be able to detect that and move away from it. It should also have remediation techniques. There are some places in the world where you can still only get one link from one provider. And in that case, if that one link is currently having problems like, say, high packet loss or jitter, it should have remediation techniques to make that link look better. Things like forward error correction and jitter buffering that are going to take a single link and make it look better than it really is operating. And then this is where SD-WAN really starts to take a huge turn away from traditional routing, and that's application awareness. That's being able to look at all the different applications that are trying to access the network and say, okay, you're a Skype video call, or you're a Skype Messenger call, or you're a Skype audio call, and be able to differentiate those 3 different types of services. And in doing so, be able to treat those individual applications different, which is where we get to business policy routing. Now, business policy routing is all about being able to go to a customer and say, hey, what are the top 10, 15, or 20 applications that actually run your business? Let's identify what those are, and let's raise them to the top of the hierarchy, the priority. So that way, in the event that you have a problem with access or there's contingency on the line, that the critical applications are going to get the bandwidth first, and all the other applications are going to get what's left over. And then that last piece is the critical piece about that ongoing understanding, that visibility into what's been happening on my network over the last 6 months. How well have my circuits performed? How much bandwidth am I consuming? What applications are consuming what type of bandwidth? And that's that long-term reporting about being able to go back and look. When you look at these 8 different tenants, individual SD-WAN vendors across the globe are going to be able to pick and choose specific things that they do and others that they don't. This VeloCloud is the only company that can do all 8 of these things. And when I was a customer, when I was in your shoes and I was evaluating the different SD-WAN players in this space, all of these were important to me. If I was going to make an investment and I knew that the choice that I was making was a 7 to 10 year investment for my company, I wanted to make sure that I had all the available tools to me and all the available features to me that were going to be critically important to my applications. And I think that takes us to our next poll question.
Great, thanks, Greg. So what attributes of SD-WAN would bring the biggest benefit to your business? Go ahead and choose the one that you feel would benefit you and bring you to the next level for success.
While you guys are all answering that question, it was interesting for me in the company that I came from that, all of these were important. And they were almost all equally as important. My company's primary application was an ERP system for the automotive world. So application prioritization probably edged in there to the #1 slot. Us being able to sell SD-WAN was fixing a bunch of networking problems that we were experiencing, but being able to prioritize our own applications so that they wouldn't be inhibited by a customer who was trying to use some other application was paramount. But we'll take a look at what people are looking at here. So it looks like we've got bandwidth optimization is in the top. network visibility and application prioritization. Yeah, so those are all really, really critical. And it's interesting to me that I see security is down there at the bottom. What we have seen customers doing is leveraging SD-WAN, right, to go out there and change the network scheme, and essentially making large, fat pipes norm across the entire landscape. And then once having done that, being able to re-architect their security on a entirely new premise. And so that does fall right in line there. But bandwidth optimization, absolutely. All of you have made a significant investment in all of your circuits, and you definitely want to get everything out of those circuits that you put into it.
Yeah, I would say, just to add to that, Greg, things that we've been seeing with our customers is they have more options for that last mile. Whether it be 4G, whether it be a cable connection, whatever it may be, it gives them a broader ability to bring in that secondary connection for those needs. And then something else that we've also been seeing is that it's reducing the deployment and reconfiguration timeframes. Is that something that you're seeing out in the industry also?
Absolutely. We talk about it a lot, right? Centralized management, and what does that mean? Well, back in the day when we had Cisco routers or Juniper routers or a legacy routing environment, and you wanted to make a change, you could script that, right? You could do a Python script, and you could say, hey, I need you to push this change out to all these different routers, and we're good to go. But that usually took a high-end architect in order to make that kind of change, and it certainly wasn't going to be something a level 1 support tech would do. What we're seeing now is that we've made this technology so available and so easy that now you can have a level 1 support tech who has gotten a call who says, hey, we're having problems with this particular application that we've identified as a critical application. A level 1 support tech can go into the business policy and create a new business policy for that new application and prioritize that, and then push that out to all the different edges without needing to have a CCIE. And that makes that technology very available. It pushes the decision making that's happening all the way to the top of the stack, which makes all customers more agile.
Great, thank you.
So we're going to talk about some of the differentiators for VeloCloud. One of the first and foremost is dynamic multipath optimization. So dynamic multipath optimization is the culmination of continuous link monitoring. So every single packet that goes back and forth across our network has a timestamp and a sequencer. And what this allows us to do is that for every single packet that hits either end of the connection, we're able to easily understand if there's any latency. If packets have come out of order, is there jitter? If a packet has completely dropped off the map, now we have packet loss. So because it's every single packet in a sub-second fashion, when we start to see issues happen on the wire, we can react to it immediately. And that allows us to do dynamic per packet steering. A lot of different vendors in this space are flow-based, which means it takes them between 10 and 30 seconds to identify whether or not a flow has failed. Because we're per packet and because we're making those decisions sub-second, when we see that there's a failure in the circuit, if we see 3 packets that are lost in a row, we can move a voice call from one link to another without losing the phone call. And then in the event that you are down to a single link, or you've got a site that only has a single link, and let's say it does have high packet loss or it has a considerable jitter, we have remediation techniques built into our solution that will allow us to duplicate packets in a packet loss situation, or to introduce a buffer if there's some jitter. This has allowed us to get up to 10 to 15% packet loss and still maintain a good voice call. There is nobody else in this space that's doing all 3 of these things all at the same time. And that's a secret sauce that's behind VeloCloud, and we call it, again, Dynamic Multipath Optimization, or DMPO for short.
Yeah, Greg,
right,
so one of the things that we run into with our customers is there are quite a few players out there offering SD-WAN, And we always recommend that they do really understand what the solution is of the other providers out there that they're evaluating, because as you just went through, this solution is very unique. And so when people hear the term SD-WAN, sometimes the association is they're all the same. So I just wanted to mention that because it's really important for our customers to make sure that they get the right solution for them.
I couldn't agree more. And, I would just be another sales guy on a phone call if I said, well, we're just the best, so you should go with us. Different SD-WAN players have come from different backgrounds. SD-WAN is certainly huge right now. The market space is, 6 to 8 billion, and by the end of 2020. So there's a lot of market share out there that people are trying to get their hands on. And these people come from, WAN optimization backgrounds. You look at Silver Peak, you look at Riverbed, right? They're looking at life from the lens of WAN optimization, and they're looking to augment their offering with SD-WAN. The Ciscos and the Junipers of the world are routing companies, right? And they want to try to augment their routing with WAN optimization. If you look at Fortinet, Fortinet is a security company who's looking to augment their offering with SD-WAN. And so I always ask customers, depending on your perspective, if you're a security first-minded company, then the Fortinet solution might be the one that you're looking for. If you've got incredibly complex routed networks that you think that only a Cisco could work with, it may behoove you to look at a solution through that lens. My take on it when I was in your shoes was, I'm buying SD-WAN for the benefits of SD-WAN, and I know that that's going to change my philosophy and the way that I went about things. A perfect example is we were a large WAN optimization place because automotive dealerships are typically in really, really bad locations across the globe. So we had a huge WAN optimization implementation. However, when we looked at our networks through the lens of SD-WAN, we realized that WAN optimization is dead for us. We're no longer going to sell that because SD-WAN is going to take place of the need that we had for WAN optimization. So we were no longer interested in buying a solution from the perspective of WAN optimization. That may be different for a global company, but for us, that was the way that we looked at it. Sorry, that might have been a wordy answer, but that's one way to look at it.
That's great.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take the screen here really quick. And I think I'll do monitor 1 here and share monitor 1. So you should be able to see my screen. Is that correct?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. And you're looking at the Orchestrator. Is that okay?
Right now we're actually
Nope.
Nope.
How about now?
Yep, now we can see the Orchestrator.
Okay, perfect. Sorry for that. Okay, so really quickly, I wanted just to give you a brief glimpse into the Orchestrator. Orchestrator, as you will see, is brilliantly laid out. A lot of time has been paid to making sure that this interface is absolutely accessible to everybody. And if you look at this particular edge that we're looking at right now, you can see that this edge, has got 2 connections. One's coming from Comcast, one's from Frontier. You can see, what interface it's plugged into, how well it's connecting to the cloud and the VPN. You can see exactly how much throughput is happening on each one of these links in real time, how much available bandwidth, what's the latency, what's the jitter, and what's the packet loss. And this is a brilliant screen because, 2 of the things that I love to hammer home for everybody who's looking into SD-WAN is visibility and control. And imagine just how much visibility this is. Think about how many different commands you have to enter into a legacy router in order to get this amount of information back out of what's happening on the WAN and what's happening with this device. If we go over here to the transport layer and we just do a quick average throughput for the past 30 days, I can get a beautiful glimpse here into how much bandwidth has actually been consumed on this edge over a month-long period. And if you think about yourself and you think about your branches, can you actually say exactly how much bandwidth you've been consuming on a month-to-month basis? I can tell you my perception about how much bandwidth I used in my own home compared to what the reality was entirely different. I know that because you're looking here at my home. So this is the edge that's in my house. And I didn't always have 2 connections. I used to have only 1 connection. But back a little over a year ago, there was a problem with one of my connections. There was a route leak at level 3 that brought down my connectivity for a good 45 minutes right in the middle of my wife's presentation with one of her customers. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm tech support for my house, so whenever there's a problem with the network, I get one of those little phone calls. But I had the VeloCloud device in my house. I had this visibility, so I went in and I took a look at my average throughput. And my impression was that I was using a ton of bandwidth, that I was spiking to well over 100 megabits on multiple occasions, and that my average throughput on any given night was, 20, 22 megabits, because, my kids stream all of the stuff that they get from the internet, right? They play games, they download stuff. So when I actually went in and I looked at what my actual throughput was, I was floored. I was like, well, I'm not using anything near what I thought I was. I'm getting up to 100 megabits here every once in a while, but most nights, right, we're in about the 10 megabit range. So I called up my primary provider and asked them what plan I was on, and they're like, well, you're on a 200 megabit plan. I'm like, well, I don't need that much. What I really need is I need resiliency. So I had them lower me down to their lowest plan, and then I took those savings and I pivoted and I ordered another circuit from another provider. The net is I saved myself $40 a month and I doubled my resiliency, and now I have bandwidth more commensurate with my usage. This is a residential example, I get that, but this is the exact same position every single network manager, every CIO is in, regardless of how many branches they have, which is how much bandwidth do I need, what are my applications running on, and how can I better leverage my spend to provide better connectivity. And this is exactly a microcosm of exactly that exact decision matrix that they're up to. If we cruise over here to applications really quickly, I will show you that, I told you that we're able to identify, actually I didn't tell you yet, but we can identify over 3,000 different applications that are running on the network. This allows us to get incredibly granular when we're looking at how we're going to prioritize traffic. And if you look here, you can see we've got iTunes here, and we've got Apple and Apple HLS and Apple App Store. This is just one manufacturer, but we're able to identify multiple applications within just that one manufacturer. This means that we allow customers to go into their actual applications that they use and be able to identify the ones that are critical and raise those up. This essentially means that we're not routing then at layer 3, we're routing at layer 7. So this got me thinking again about, using this technology, right, to help reduce the number of phone calls I get from my wife when I'm out of town. So I built my wife a business policy. So this is the business policy framework. This is where you go in and you build your business policies to elevate your critical applications up to make sure that during points of contention that these applications always stay up and running. And so I built my wife a business policy, right? So it's called Angel Work. It matches any source. So whether she's on her phone or she's on her iPad or she's on her Surface or on her home computer, as long as she's going to her company's destination in any application within that family. So whether it's Exchange or File and Print or CRM or what have you, use every link available to you and make the priority high. This means that no matter how many Netflix movies my kids watch, no matter how many YouTube videos, no matter how many games they download, they'll never interrupt her work. She's the top dog in the family. My kids also play this game called World of Warcraft. They're really big into player versus player. Now, if you don't know anything about player versus player, if 2 kids hit the same key at the same time across the globe, the kid with the lowest latency wins. So I built them a policy, right, making all of their, using both the links available to them, and I've lowered their latency in half. I've made them the lords of all creation in World of Warcraft because they always win whenever 2 kids hit the key at the same time. And again, this is a residential example, but you can imagine as a customer, if these were your critical applications, this means that you could provide Facebook access and Netflix access to your customers in your waiting room or to your employees, while also making sure that you're never, ever going to inhibit your business if in the event that the circuits get overrun. You're always going to elevate these applications to the top. So that's my quick 2-second demo on the system. We'll take it back to you, Marguerite.
Great. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate that.
Everybody always gets a kick out of my home network. And usually at the end of these calls, usually the customers are saying, well, that was a great demo. When do I get one from my home?
I know.
All right, so let's talk. Yeah, trust me, I was delighted when I finally got mine at my house. All right, so let's talk about the individual components that actually make up the solution. It's actually a fairly simple solution. The first piece of it is the cloud-based orchestration. That's the orchestrator I just showed you. It's maintained and operated by us. It's in the cloud, so you access it via a web page. And this is the central point of orchestration. This is where you're going to go in and you're going to build your business policies. This is where you're going to build your configurations. This is the tool that the devices, when you ship them out to site, this is where they'll phone home to pull down their configuration. Now, out at the branch, we have what we call the edges, or the NSX SD-WAN edges. Now, these edges are software in nature. However, you can consume them in an appliance model. We have created appliances that we load our hardware on. I call these devices the gatekeepers of policy, because they inherit that business policy that you create in the orchestrator, and they apply the business policy there, because where are the applications being driven from? The users at the branch. These devices are fully functional. They can talk OSPF on the LAN. They can talk BGP on the WAN. They can be a DHCP server. They are capable of high availability. They can also be run as a virtual instance as well. And they absolutely can completely replace legacy routers out at the branch. Now, the third component are those devices. Let's go back one just real quick. So the third component is that blue circle you see there right there in the internet. That blue circle represents the VelaCloud gateways. And this is another huge differentiator for VelaCloud in this space. We have deployed our software at all the major ISP POPs across the globe. We have essentially put our software, a multi-tenant version of our software, at the front door of all the major ISP players. So what this means is that from that branch to our gateways, you get the benefit of that dynamic multi-path optimization, and then we hand on a segment. So now you can prioritize and you can remediate all of your traffic, whether it's in your data center or if it's up in the cloud. So that's a huge differentiator for VelaCloud. Okay, let's move on. So now we talk about the hybrid WAN deployment. The hybrid WAN deployment is all about leveraging our cloud gateways with your MPLS infrastructure. So a lot of players in this space, in the SD-WAN space, are out there banging that drum, ditch your MPLS, and go with just pure internet over for all your critical applications. And I think that the tolerance for most people are, you know what, I've seen my internet connections in my area. While that might be a great medium to help augment my MPLS, I'm not necessarily going to run on it as my primary transport. And so for those customers, absolutely a hybrid WAN deployment is all about leveraging those cloud gateways and one of our edges in your data center in order to run over both those mediums. And this is the way that most customers go to market with our SD-WAN solution. Go ahead and move forward. And then for those customers who are looking for a very, very quick way to do a proof of concept, a proof of concept, as we all know, is all about just making sure that this new technology is going to work for your critical applications. And we do this by leveraging those cloud gateways. So our cloud gateways are out there, they're already deployed and already up and running. So what this allows you to do is we can send you a box and you can connect that to the cloud gateway. And for those applications that are in the cloud, we're already right there, so we can make sure that those are up and running. For those applications that are in your data center, we can stand up an IPsec tunnel from that cloud gateway to your data center, and that will give us access to those subnets and to those applications that are in your data center. And this will allow you to go to POC very, very quickly to prove that the solution is going to provide the connectivity you want. For some customers, this is the long-term solution because eventually they're going to migrate all those data elements out of their data center. For some customers, this is a transitionary step before they implement our technology into their network stack at their data center, which for some companies can take time. So those are the two types of deployments. Let's move on to the 5 common scenarios. So 5 common scenarios where we see a lot of adoption. Number 1, cloud adopters. And that would make sense with our solution because we've got our cloud gateways deployed. So if a customer out there is saying, hey, my major initiative for this next year is to move to Salesforce and to Office 365, they're looking for a solution to prioritize and remediate that traffic that's headed over the planned internet right to these service providers. Migrating their network to the cloud is a natural extension of that. Customers who are out there deploying new applications, 80 to 90% of all new applications that are deployed today are deployed in a cloud-first strategy. So if you're out there and you're thinking to yourself, hey, you know what, we've got an initiative to deploy these 5 new applications out to our users, our end users, those are probably in the cloud first. So this is a great opportunity for you to leverage the technology to see what that application is going to do to your network, and also give you an on-ramp to the cloud using the cloud gateways. A lot of customers out there have been riding on old hardware. They've been sweating those assets for a really long time. This was me. When I was a customer, I was sweating Cisco 2900s and early 4000s because my customers weren't going to pay for a new box that didn't provide any new functionality. And so I had these devices that had been out there forever. If you're one of these customers who are looking at, hey, I've got, a bunch of legacy devices out there that are getting end of hardware support, this is a great opportunity to replace that legacy infrastructure with something new that's going to provide value. And if you're looking to deploy a whole bunch of new locations, if you've got 50, 60 new sites that you're deploying over the next year, this is a great opportunity to deploy on a new greenfield and create a new template that which you can go back and retrofit your old sites. And then there's a lot of people out there who are at WAN contract renewal. Again, this was my space as well. We had a bunch of WAN contracts out there. We had a whole bunch of MPLS links that were running congested all the time, 1.5 and 3 megabit links, and we were looking to have to increase those links using a bunch of money. And what we found was by using SD-WAN, instead of spending the money to increase the links, we spent the money on SD-WAN and provided greater functionality and greater visibility, and therefore saving myself money in the long term versus upgrading those links. So those are 5 big reasons why people move. And I think we have another poll question.
Yep, this brings us to our last poll question. Do you feel SD-WAN will impact your investment of existing technology in your network? So, Greg has mentioned throughout this time and how important it is for us to make sure that in the investments that we've made, no company wants to throw it away. And so we'd like to see what your thoughts are as far as with bringing SD-WAN into your environment, as 100% of you said you've at least started considering it. How do you think that would impact you?
You're seeing the responses coming in there, and I think this is exactly what I expected. So here's a microcosm of this technology. So when you think about security has always been predicated on the idea that you've got small, inexpensive, congested links. So you're going to put security out at the branch edge because there I can reduce the amount of traffic that actually hits the network by denying specific types of traffic. In the new world, if you've got big, fat, resilient links, then maybe having a bunch of security appliances out at the edge doesn't make sense. Maybe allowing all that traffic to traverse itself and go to a centralized data center. Or, more importantly, being able to use a business policy to determine where I need to send that traffic to a specific type of security appliance makes more sense. And so is it going to impact? Absolutely, your existing investment, but not necessarily in a bad way. It could impact it in delightful ways, meaning that your security strategy can more reflect how your application development is going, right? If you're developing all your applications and moving to the cloud, maybe migrating away from an on-box solution to a cloud solution like Zscaler or WebSense makes more sense to you long term. Hard to say, but this is just a microcosm of some of the changes that SD-WAN does to your network that allows you to make other changes.
Yeah, so Greg, one of the things that we hear a lot is that customers have concerns who have MPLS networks. You know, when SD-WAN came out, the whole buzzword was, oh, it's going to completely eliminate MPLS. MPLS is such an embedded technology into so many enterprises today. What's your view on that?
You know, it's I sometimes chuckle when I see some of the lower tier SD-WAN vendors trying to gain mind share by banging that drum. Like, I'm going to save you a ton of money by being able to get rid of your MPLS networks. Well, I think that shows a lot of lack of visibility into how much we rely on those MPLS networks for that critical application, critical applications that need it. And a perfect example of this is a call center in Dubai. A call center in Dubai for, say, a company like Expedia, and I'm just using them as an example, not as a customer. You know, they run multiple MPLS connections into that call center in Dubai. Now, SD-WAN is going to provide them the ability to provide much more resiliency for those connections in that call center where they have had problems with, you know, their MPLS in the past. But as a company like Expedia, who lives and dies by those calls being made and being answered and not going down, are they going to rip out all their MPLS and run everything over the internet? No. But it's certainly going to provide them a better channel to, you know, look into all those different applications and be able to prioritize voice over multiple different media types. So is it the MPLS killer? For some companies, it may be. If you're in a small area and you don't have a huge need and you've got really good internet links. For other companies, you know, absolutely not. It could be, you know, a great augmenter, but not necessarily a replacement.
Yeah, and just to add to that, you know, one of the things that we see from a success story for companies who still want to utilize their MPLS investment, but also incorporate the SD-WAN is those who have remote locations. So versus having to have the high cost for that MPLS connection, the SD-WAN tends to be a very good fit in those different scenarios. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the fact that it allows you to be granular at each individual branch, you know, position. In the old days, right, you had to have, you know, VPN connections, and you had to have MPLS connections, and usually, you know, centralized all those connectivity back to a central point. If you had say you had a location in Manitoba, Canada, who couldn't get MPLS, so that they were only VPN in, but if you wanted to get from one point to the other, you had to go through a central conjunction point. You know, with SD-WAN, now they're all on the same network. They're not disjointed anymore. And specifically for global networks. Global networks with NNIs, that was a really, really difficult thing to do. Now with SD-WAN, we're going to overlay over the top of all those different technologies and make it one big homogeneous network.
Great.
So just, you know, 3 key takeaways, and my key takeaways here are the differentiators for VeloCloud. So if you're looking at different SD-WAN solutions, here are the key things that really differentiate us in this space. And, you know, one is that WAN simplicity. You saw, you know, the demo of the Orchestrator. You saw how clean the interface was, how every time I clicked on something, you got an expected result back. And, you know, this is one of the huge things that was important for me when I was looking at SD-WAN vendors was, can I take this interface and hand it to the CCIEs of the world, and will they be happy with it? And can I take the same interface and give it to the, you know, level 1 tech support person and have them be comfortable with it? And the simplification of what we've done has been absolutely brilliant. And then that visibility and control, right? Being able to actually see what's going on in the network and being able to make better decisions about how to use your transport. The second one is that assured application performance, that dynamic multipath optimization, being per packet, being able to be resilient within a few milliseconds and making decisions on your traffic makes the solution so much more impactful. And the last piece is that managed on-ramp to the cloud. Being able to provide dynamic multipath optimization, not just for those applications that are going to your data center, but for those that you've already moved to the cloud. And one more. So I do a lot of reading up on presentations, and they say that for every hour-long presentation, you're lucky if people walk away with 3 things. And I always say to myself, instead of you trying to figure out what those 3 things are, I'll just tell you what those 3 things are. So point number 1 is NSX SD-WAN really does deliver on its promise to increase bandwidth, reduce transport costs, and increase reliability. It's true. It's not just vaporware. It's not just a bunch of smoke and mirrors. There's a reason why this marketplace has been so hot for such a long time, because we're actually delivering on this promise. The second one is almost every single enterprise can benefit from NSX SD-WAN in some way. Almost every single enterprise out there has transport needs. And I would argue that every single enterprise has transport needs. And if you have transport needs, you have transport woes. And SD-WAN is going to give you finally that visibility and control into what's happening in the network to help fix these things long term. And the last one is First Communications and VMware. We're here to absolutely help you on your journey.
All right, well, thank you, Greg and Marguerite. A lot of great information. For those of you on the call, we will be sending out a copy of the recording and the presentation afterwards. And we do have one question I want to kind of get to quickly. Someone asked if they can get a demo of the Orchestrator. So if you want to see more about the product, we do have an interactive technology center in Oak Brook and in Akron. So reach out to your sales rep. And you can come in and you can see we do have SD-WAN devices at both offices, and you can see the Orchestrator more in depth. We can test it out. We can take down a connection while we're on a call, and you'll see that that call stays up. And we also offer a proof of concept program where if you want to try it out at your location to make sure you can get buy-in, we can do a 30-day proof of concept. And again, just kind of reach out to your salesperson if you're interested in either one of those. So I think that is it for today, and everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you,
I'd like
Greg
to thank
Marguerite.
everybody on the call for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Marguerite, Michelle, for hosting me, and I'm available to you anytime you like.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.